Konkonko sanibonani nonke emakhaya babukeli uyazi-ke njalo ngomsombuluko ngo-12 o'clock sesifikile thina nohlelo oluthande kakhulu ilungelo lakho it's your right. As you know, we're coming to you live la kumamba phambili SABC 1 eMzansi for sure. Mbukeli kulamalanga phela liyakhuphuka izinga lobugebengu bokuntshontshwa komazisi babantu lokho kwaziwa ngokuthi i-identity fraud noma i-impersonation. Manje ke mbukeli lobu bugebengu sebushiye abaningi bethwele obukhulu ubunzima. Namhlanje mbukeli uyazi ukuthi lo owakajala ushongololo alisho unhlanhla uthi nje ake silifakele ibuko lolu daba sibone ukuthi kahle kahle kuthiwani ngalolu daba. The new normal that was brought about by COVID-19 conditions, forcing many to rely on online platforms as well as goods and services, expose many consumers to cybercrime. And with the tax season currently underway, fraudsters are also stepping up their game on unsuspecting consumers using all kinds of online scams. I guess lalele naluta.
Ubuxhakaxhaka bale mihla benza ubomi bube lula bukwalulutho ekuvaleni imida kwezonxibelelwano. Kunjalo obobomi bobuxhakaxhaka bukwayincindi yekhala nanjengoko bubeka abantu emngciphekweni wokuba zizisulu zokubelwa iinkcukacha zizikrelemnqa i-identity theft ke ngolwasemzini. Kwelinye icala iyure yobunzima miswa ngci kwentshukumo kweliliswe ngenxa yentsholongwane ye-corona ikhokelele ekubeni lonyuke mpela izinga lokubiwa kweenkcukacha zabantu ingakumbi kwi-intanethi. Kaloku ngeli xesha abantu abaninzi basebenzela emakhaya. Oko ke kuthetha ukuba uninzi lwabo alukhuselekanga kwi-intanethi. Zona ke izikrelemnqa zisebenzisa elithuba ukungena ngondlela mnyama kwii-imeyili zabantu zisiba iinkcukacha zabo. Zininzi ke indlela zobubuqhetseba sukela ekubiweni kwezazisi zabantu, amakhadi webhanki, iinkcukacha zerhafu singazibalula. Bambi ke bathi bazifumane bentyumbantyumbeka ematyaleni abangazani nawo ngenxa yalo mkhuba. Ukanti ngonyaka ka-2014 lacima emini ilanga kuRobert Mananyetso waseMokopane. OkaMananyetso wayalelwa nguSARS ukuba akhawulezise ahlawule imali etyalwa yinkampani yakhe, abeke yena engazange wavanga loo nkampani nasemdudweni. Limthembe nde uvalo wakhawuleza wavula ityala emapoliseni nathi zange amncede. USARS kwelinye icala umkrweca rhoqo efuna imali yakhe, sibeke nesikrelemnqa esaba iinkcukacha zakhe siqhubeka nokuzisebenzisa rhoqo ngexesha lerhafu.
Ndine-affidavit, ndivule netyala, kodwa uSARS usathi ndiyamtyala. Ndincedeni.
Unelisa Nqulana nolitshantliziyo elifundisa uluntu nge-identity theft kumaqonga wonxibelelwano uthi.
Sometimes abantu bazibona sebezi-director ne-shareholders kwi-company bengazazi. So that's what happens when umntu ethe wafumana i-ID yakho. Because that's one of the things umntu can do ngegama lakho. Umntu uyakwazi uhamba ayorejistarisha i-company. All they need is igama ne-ID. Bayakwazi ke abanye abantu noforja i-signature xa irejistarisha loo nto. Ngamanye amaxesha uzawufumana i-email ithi suke eSARS, uzofumana imali eSARS, uklike ungajikanga uba ingaba yi-email esuka kuSARS nanyani. So most of the time funeka umntu acheke before anikeze i-information.
Njengokuba ke siza kusonga unyaka kungekudala, kuza kunyanzeleka ukuba abathengi bahlale bevundlile ukuthintela into engekehli. Kwilungelo lakho, ndinguphaphama Changana Dube.
Masibonge kakhulu-ke mbukeli ngaleyo mbiko esiwudidelwe intokazi usisiphaphama Dube. Manje-ke mbukeli ukhuluma kabanzi phela ngobugebengu be-identity fraud. Masamukele ngocingo olubizwa i-Skype. Sina intokazi usis Doreen Mokwena. Yena-ke she's a digital forensic specialist kanye no Mr. Money van Schalkwyk. I'm sure you still remember him. He comes from the South African Fraud Prevention Services. Mr. van Schalkwyk, thank you so much for joining us, sir. Good to see you after lockdown. How are you doing?
It is very good to see you so much, and thank you for inviting me to your show.
Oh, thank you so much, Mani. Welcome. Sister Ntokwazi, siyakwamukela nawe. Osichazele kabanzi ukuthi umsebenzi wakho wena as a digital forensic specialist, yini kahle kahle ospecialize ngayo Ntokazi? Go ahead, Sister Rin. All right, we can't hear Sister Rin. Sister Rin, we're going to fix our issues with your mic in a moment because I can't hear you. But Mani, maybe let me come to you very quickly while we're fixing Doreen's mic and everything. Tell us a bit about what services you actually provide there by the Fraud Prevention Services, just for the benefit of our viewers once more.
Yes, just to remind you, so, the SAFPS, Fraud Prevention Services, is a non-profit organization, and we are mainly there as a centralized database.
Yes, go ahead, Mani.
We are there as a centralized database for credit providers, banks, and retailers to list information if somebody trying to defraud them. A major part of our business is to help consumers who have been victims of identity theft, or that they are scared that they would become a victim of identity theft, and they can add a layer of protection, which we call protective registration, which is a free service to consumers. So when somebody is trying to open an account at a bank or a retailer, like or Jet, trying to open that account, that the retailer or the bank is notified to say this consumer wants special protection, and more processes needs to kick in place.
All right.
To protect the consumer.
All right. Sister Doreen, can you hear me now? Just nod your head. Doreen, uyangizwa sisi?
Yes, I.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, ngiyakuzwa.
Sengiyakuzwa sithandwa sami. Mamela, bengisakubuza ukuthi awusithi fahla ngokuthi as a digital forensic specialist, ngathi lo msebenzi wakho ubaluleke kakhulu, especially in relation to today's topic. Awusichazela ukuthi nenzani Ntokazi?
So into esiyenzayo thina lana ukuthi we assist companies and individuals abahlukumezane nendaba yokuthi baba-defraudile, because now the new wave of crime ukuthi bakuthumelele email from people pretending to be from SARS or any company trying to elicit funds. So what we authenticate those documents, make sure ukuthi they are legitimate. Then we give a workshop on how to protect yourself against cybercrime and against digital fraud and being hacked. So basically, that's what we do from our side.
All right. Now, Mani and Doreen, I'm sure you saw our case study there. There is basically Rupert. Rupert has been fighting a losing battle against SARS since 2014. Apparently, his company keeps getting deducted for a business or a company that he is not privy to, that is registered in his name. He says he's reported the matter to the police since 2014. He's even got a case number. He's gone to SARS multiple number of times, and he's still not getting any recourse. Money, I mean, for such a big institution like SARS, who have access to get you, to rope in private investigators and other specialist investigators like your Doreen to come through and find out what's really happening, because this man keeps getting deductions on his account, and it's probably money that he really needs. I mean, this is quite aggravating, Mani, that we don't have a dedicated body as such to deal with cybercrime, particularly in South Africa.
Yeah, and now there are two things that's running in my mind. And the first thing it is totally unacceptable for SARS not to deal with this kind of problem. And number two, I think consumers sometimes take the identity theft not so serious, because they think, well, what have I got to lose? Somebody's just opening accounts in my name. But this is the kind of frustration that the person is going through. But we as consumers are facing when somebody opens up accounts in our name or taking the accounts over, because we have to now prove that we are not the fraudster. And hence, I think it's very important that consumers register for protective registration as a value-added free service, and make sure that they are protected in this environment.
And Doreen, when ucabanga ukuthi angenzani uBit Robert, I mean, since 2014, and I agree with Mani ukuthi it's absolutely unacceptable for SARS to keep giving him the runaround when they actually should have enlisted ama-services afana nani ukuthi nizobasiza, so that you get to the bottom of this issue. I mean, 2014, that's a very long time.
It is. Yeah, you know, at this point, the first point of departure is verification if the matter stands for SARS directly, because situations happen in which those deductions or communications are not from SARS. And again, just to piggyback on what my previous colleague has said, that it's actually absolutely unacceptable for SARS to actually do this, because at this point in time, we need to try and teach consumers about digital literacy, how to protect themselves. And in the meantime, we do have recourse for taking things up with such details. I believe it was from 2014 till today, it's almost 6 years, and I do believe that recourse was supposed to be put in place for him to get assistance in this matter. So we are able to assist them, and this is going to be done so by Cybercrime.
All right, and very quickly, maybe Sister Doreen, before Siakefin Togas, Nina, are you guys an independent body or you're an extension of a government body? Nsebenza kanjani nini?
No, we're not. We are a cybersecurity entity that deals with digital forensics and cybersecurity. So from this matter, we can actually build up the case from what happened from day one up until today. Because like I said, most of the problem that we have is with...
All right, she keeps cutting there, Mbugeli. Unfortunately, usistorin laphaya uyachaza ukuthi bona bangamsiza kanjani uBut Robert. But Robert, I'm sure uzwile lapho nsizwa ukuthi silidingide kanjani udaba lakho namhlanje. They are saying that they are still able to help you because into abafuna ukuyibona ukuthi inkinga yaqala kuphi, so that they can assist you. And bathi it's absolutely unacceptable for SARS namaphoyisa ukuthi abakwazi ukuthi bakuthinte. So sicela uxhumane either no Money van Schalkwyk or usistorin Mokoena. Mbugeli nawe 01171469186919. Those are the two numbers that you call. Consumer at sabc.co.za. Siyabuya emva kwaleli ikhefu. Welcome back. You're watching Yilungelo Lakho live on SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Nami Umajali Unhlanhlo Alisha. Do call us in studio on 0117146918 or 7146919. Consumer at sabc.co.za is of course our email address. Ungasithola futhi lapha ku Facebook. I will be reading some of your Facebook messages. Namhlanje Mbugeli, we're talking about prevalence of cybercrime, particularly njengoba abantu abaningi kade behleli emakhaya. Still abanye basahleli emakhaya, they working from home. You don't necessarily have ama-firewall nezinto ezikuvikelayo uma usebenzisa i-computer yakho njengokuthi usebenze lapho emsebenzini. Nginaye usistorin Mokoena, who's a digital forensic specialist, alongside Mr. Money van Schalkwyk from the SA Fraud Prevention Services. Now, Money, I like how your hair is blowing behind you there and the ambience that it's giving. You're looking very fresh. Now, tell us, Money, let's talk about, cybercrime and, of course, the increase, particularly during lockdown. I mean, a lot of people have been sitting at home, compelled to work, use their computers, which might not necessarily have the sophisticated software like firewalls, etc., that you do have access to when you're in the workplace. So these people were literally like sitting ducks. But let's talk about, like, what are the stats saying in terms of the prevalence in cyber crimes during the particular lockdown period, sir?
Yeah, it was interesting, what we saw during lockdown is the number of fraud cases went down, but the number of scams increased. So we saw 3 specific scams, and I think some of them are still going in some way or form, is that a lot of cheap loans were targeted, and the branding of Direct Access, Bayport, Wanga, Bitvest, these are large companies. Their logos were used in the scam, then offering cheap loans. But here's where the crux came. They wanted, the scammers wanted consumers to pay something up front into their bank account, and as an administration fee or something. And I need to tell consumers, if you get to anything like this, where people say pay something up front, you are being targeted from a scam point of view. Please do not carry on dealing with that organization. The second scam that we saw was that people posing as a bank, as Absa or Standard Bank or Nedbank, and posing as a bank, and then say, you can please apply here for your holiday, your payment holiday. And people were then providing their detail to fraudsters. That was the second one. And the third one was emails that were posing as government, providing COVID-19 funds, and by doing that, people then also provided their details, including bank account details, to fraudsters. And so those were the 3 big scams we saw during the lockdown.
But money,
and still seeing time to time.
Yes, but Mani, I mean, maybe let's talk about the MO. And I'm going to get Doreen in a moment. I mean, obviously, these criminals didn't go on lockdown. They were literally sitting there and finding alternative ways and means to up their ante, if so to speak. How do you then, Mani, from the types of scams that you've just mentioned now, how does one even begin then to differentiate between the fake, the fraudster sender of the email versus the actual bank or whatever service provider? Because we've actually seen emails from the bank or letters from the bank or from whatever service provider that looked, and even at the letterhead and even numbers. So you have to really look for minute details. But what are you looking for in order to ensure that this person is scamming you, or this is the actual person sending you the email?
Well, I think the golden rule should be, do not even respond to any of those emails. If you want a payment holiday from your bank because you lost your job during COVID, you contact the bank on the number that you have got, not what you get in an email from somebody. And you get the number and you contact the bank and you apply for a payment holiday. The bank will not send emails out to offer payment holidays to people. People have to contact the bank and apply for it. The same with government. Government will not just send emails out and offer COVID grants. People have to apply for it, and there's a process to follow. The first scam was, if somebody, and I mentioned it before, if somebody says to you, here's a loan, but before you get the loan, you have to pay something to me, put down the phone, you're dealing with a scamster. So those are my advice. We should, if we want action like the payment holidays, we need to apply for it. Don't respond to emails and providing with your information.
Thank you so much, man. This is story nuthini wena, because uyachaza mani ukuthi ama scams iwona anyukile more than fraud. I mean, ubani uchaza kanjani ukuthi umehluko, this is a scam and then lona, this is fraudulent activity. How do you define between the two?
Okay, so I'm gonna come in from a technical perspective.
Yes.
First of all, what we call a CCTV, which is a country code top level domain name, and you've got a GCLD. So, for instance, absa.co.za. What scammers do is they have absa.co.za, but the absa it's written in a specific way that doesn't raise eyebrows.
Okay.
Of course, most background to this. So the first thing that you notice if the email is fraudulent, you look at the domain name. The domain name never lies. For instance, Absa right now is sitting on .africa, but scammers are sending emails from .co.za. That's what should actually tell you, Oguti, this is a fraudulent email. Number two, look at grammar. Look at the way they write emails. Scammers don't have time to actually polish up their English. They write emails in a way because like they just want to get things done very quickly. So that's how they communicate.
All right, let's leave it there for now, Sister Doreen. I want to quickly take an ad break. Mbugeli nawe, if une story, if you scare me, do send us an email, consumer@sabc.co.za, 011-714-6918, 714-6919. Yilungelo Lakho is back shortly after this. We're live on SABC 1, Yilungelo Lakho Mbugeli, and if you are joining us here, you can give us a call on 011-714-6918 or 714-6919. Itopic yethu yanamhlanje Mbugeli cybercrime njengoba abantu abaningi kade besebenzela emakhaya, abanye basahlele emakhaya, basesebenzele endlini. Therefore, they've become vulnerable ukuthi baba ama victims of ama scammers nama fraudsters lapha kwi cyber. Ama guest wami Mr. Manny van Skalwyk, we SA Fraud Prevention Services. Sister Doreen Mokoena, or a digital forensic specialist. Now, Manny, stats indicate that someone's identity somewhere in the world is actually stolen every 2 seconds. I mean, that is shocking. Please elaborate. I mean, you've elaborated on some of the types of scams that we encounter when we look at cyber crimes. But let's talk about. Yes, you did mention the ones that have that have actually prevailed during lockdown. But let's talk about the victims here, Manny. What does a scamster or fraudster have in mind when they target the likely or unsuspecting victim? Is there a way that you can classify these people and say, no, it's people that don't have access to this, it's illiterate people, or who's most vulnerable to becoming a victim?
I just want to your first question I thought was so valid, is to say, why do people want to steal my information?
Absolutely.
And I think for one big reason, they want to lay their hands on our money. They want to steal, let's put it straight, they want to steal our money. And how do they steal the money? Is that they either, because of this information, they pose as us. So somebody would steal my information, they would contact the bank, and they would try to take over my account that I've got with the bank. Mm-hmm. The moment they take over that account, they can empty it, or they can purchase some stuff, whatever they want to do. So that's the first thing. They either want to take over your account, or they want to open new accounts in your name. Mm-hmm. And there are various ways of doing it. So when they steal some information, and we all know about this whole Experian data compromise that happened, 24 million identities were compromised. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting is not all data was stolen, some data was stolen. So how the fraudsters will tackle that is they will contact us telephonically and pose as the bank. So they will phone you and say, I'm phoning from ABSA as an example, and we see that there's a big debit order that needs to go through. Should I stop that? And our immediate response is, yes, please stop it. And we are very glad that these people are phoning us. Then they would offer some information to make us feel confident that they are from a bank. And this is typically the information that they would have stolen. So they would phone us and say, I see this is your address, this is your telephone number, and this is your email address. Yeah. Now we kind of feel more confident that these people know who I am, and they are saying who they are, and they really want to help me. Then I think the crux is coming. Once you feel confident you're dealing with the right person, then they would want something for you, and it's usually based on fear. So they would say, oh my gosh, my system just went down, and can you please give me your bank account details again? And because we want this debit order to stop, we provide that information. And the next thing then comes to say, I know I shouldn't ask it, but please give me your PIN. Because then we can stop this big debit order. And then they use fear for you to provide this information. And my advice, because the moment you offer or you provide that information, then the bank is not going to say, I'm sorry, here's your money back. You provided the information to somebody, and you will be without a cent. So I think when you start hearing this conversation that people want information from you, just put down the phone. Just put down the phone. Don't argue. Don't try to negotiate. Don't try to catch them out. They professional fraudsters, and they will get that information in some way or form. Put down the phone and save yourself a lot of trouble.
Sister, bayithatha le information labantu, is it from our cell phones? I mean, siyazi ukuthi we've heard a lot about ukuhackwa. I think this phrase yokuthi there's people's phones being hacked. I mean, if I understand, there's also a minister ekuthiwa kuhackwe i-WhatsApp number yakhe and so forth. So bayithola kanjani abantu lezinto ukuthi umuntu azakwazi ukuthi ayongena kwi-personal space sakhe esinjengefone necomputer yakho ukuthi bathathe i-information yakho bayisebenzise ngokwabo? Aren't there certain things or ama-systems are in place ukuthi at least kunama-red flags kumele ubone ukuthi la ngizoba nenkinga and alert the authorities should you suspect ukuthi mhlampe somebody is trying to steal your information, Ntokazi?
Okay, first of all, how these people actually how they get your information is they hack you by means of, Rika, what they do is like they hijack your cell phone number, and by then you don't literally have access to it. Number two, when we apply for things, maybe sifuna amaloni, kukhona indawo labathi do you consent on your information being marketed?
Shared, yes.
Yes. Then when you take on the saying, look, yes, I do consent on my information being sent out, but then thing is we don't know how and when is your information going to be used. And luckily for us right now, we have what we call the POPI Act, which has measures in place for the protection of personal information.
Yes.
POPI iti the consumer, you need to let the consumer know, this is how I'm going to store their information. This is how I'm going to use their information. And consumers need to know they have the right to have their information deleted, which is called the right to be forgotten.
All right. Okay. Awubambe kanjalo Ntokazi. We do have our first call on the line. This is Amy all the way from here at Johannesburg. Sis Amy, are you on the line? Thank you so much for joining us. Yilungelo Lakho singakusiza kanjani today?
Okay, thank you so much for taking my call.
Yebo sisi, please go ahead.
Okay. There's somebody who used my credit card sometime in Rio de Janeiro. I got an SMS saying that somebody is using my credit card. They've done a purchase.
Okay. Have you ever been to Rio de Janeiro, Sis Amy?
No.
Okay. So how were you notified? Uthole kanjani ukuthi basebenzisa ikhadi lakho, and have you been able to stop it?
Okay, I got the SMS. It was right in the middle of the night. And then in the morning, I phoned the bank, the ABSA bank, to notify them about that transaction and to stop the card.
Okay.
That was telephonically, and then they did say they stopped the card. The sad part of it, when I went to the bank, they told me that, no, not to worry, they stopped. They offered me a new card. I said, I don't want the new card.
Yes.
But strangely enough, I got a phone call from a lady wanting me to confirm my ID number. I refused to give it to her.
Okay.
She said she wants to deliver a credit card. I said, no, I can't because I stopped it at the bank. Then I said to her, on what basis are you asking me for my home details and everything? Because you're from the bank, you should know.
Exactly.
My date of birth is sufficient.
All right,
said,
Sis
no,
Amy,
that's not.
Sis Amy, because of time constraint, I have to go to the ad break. So how can we help you today? Has the activity in your card stopped at this point?
Yes, they did stop, but the bank is still charging me. They don't want to help me.
Okay, all right, sis Amy, please ulalele lapho kumabonakude wakho. We'll be addressing your question and concerns after the break. Now embukela ungenza njengo sis Amy 0117146918 7146919. We're back shortly after this. Ungayindawo. Still coming to you live like Mamba Pambili. SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. Uhleli nomajali uMangcolosi uAlisha Mbukeli 0117146918 7146919 are the magic numbers. Let's hear your cybercrime stories. Abantu bayafa la ngaphandle, abantu basebenzele emakhaya kuthiwa ama scams anyukile during lockdown. So my guest Mr. Money van Schalkwyk and uSistorini Mokwena basiza Mbukeli ukuthi sithole ama plans nama tips ukuthi wena ungazivikela kanjani from being a victim of a cybercrime. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we have Amy who called us earlier on. She says her credit card was being used in Rio de Janeiro where she's never been before. While she got an SMS at night, in the middle of the night, in the morning she went and notified the bank who promised to stop the card, and they eventually did. But then afterwards, they wanted to issue her a new card, a new credit card, and she says she refused because these people were getting very personal on that call, asking about her PIN and ID number and so forth. So, Mani, I mean, are these the types of cases that people bring up to your attention? And maybe let's talk about what are some of the most common that you actually deal with at SA Prevention Fraud Services.
Yeah, I think the first thing in terms of Amy, she did exactly the right thing. She refused to provide her contact details or her ID number. She did, and maybe I just didn't hear properly, but I thought she said the bank is still charging her.
Yes.
And she should take it on with the bank. If she's not happy with the bank's response, she can take it to the banking ombudsman. That's also a free service, and they would clearly sort it out for her. But in terms of our issues that we're dealing with at the South African Fraud Prevention Services, I think impersonation is one of our biggest issues where, and just to give you statistics, is that the first 3 months before the lockdown, we had cases. Then during lockdown, the impersonation cases dropped tremendously because we all sat at home and we didn't buy. But the moment the economic activity increased, our impersonation figures doubled to what it used to be in January, February, March.
What is impersonation, Mani? Sorry to cut you there. Maybe just elaborate further. Like, I mean, what type of scam or fraudulent activity is impersonation?
Well, that is when people take your name and your information, and they're trying to open accounts in your name.
Okay.
In your name, but for them to deliver goods to their property, open credit cards in your name, open bank accounts in your name, so that they can utilize that money for goods that they want, and not obviously with the intention to pay. But when you will open your eyes, people will knock on your door to say, well, where's my payment? Because it's all it's done in your name.
Just like our case study. Sister, maybe come in there for a moment. Why do you then think ukuthi particularly thina sabantu abamnyama asithathi serious lento ye cybercrime? I mean, you have one in a few abantu abafana no Sis Amy who actually see that suspicious activity, and the first thing they do is ayihambele yena aye ebank. Ofuna uqale ahlale alinde up until kukhishwa thousands of imali before they actually start doing something. So awusichazele ntokazi, like singayishintsha kanjani le behavior yokuthi abantu asinaka ukuthi kwenzakalani, and we are so free ukuthi sinikezane nge-information yethu over the phone to people that you don't even know.
You know, everything falls down from desperation. Number one, criminals know their target market. Number two, criminals know when to attack. For instance, not a lot of people are aware of what we call digital literacy. So if you see a credit card being used in maybe Sao Paulo in Brazil, you wouldn't really take it serious because you know which your credit card ihleli nawe la endlini.
You've
So
never been,
iyenzani laphaya?
yebo.
You've never been. But the crux of this ukuthi credit card details are sold on the dark web. And once they get hold of your credit card details, they use it all over the world on a global scale. And another thing, we need to be really careful when it comes to social engineering because criminals do ask for our details online. For instance, I've always said that uyazi ukuthi awungenelani competition. Mara umuntu uzokufonela ethi wena you've won 10 million rands, but for you to do that, you need to confirm your ID number, your PIN card, and whatnot. And we need to remember that the bank will never ever ask for those personal details from you. So we need to be educated on digital literacy, and we also need to be educated on cybercrime because it happens every day. You know, so social engineering is one of the issues that we have because we put our lives online a lot, and when this thing happens to us, we don't have any recourse.
Sister Doreen, I want to get in there quickly while we're still deliberating this point because you show something very interesting there. Yoguti amalokhuzana ama-fraudsters bane target market yabo, and as you've explained, Uguti, these are obviously abantu that are not going to take a second look at something like a credit card yakhe isetshenziswa offshore somewhere engakazayi kuma-Cayman Islands. So maybe talk to us about that, Uguti. How sithi obani laba mekuthiwa i-fraudster iyamazi target market, because angithi for you to obtain information so he's basically taking chances, he's gambling there, but wenza kanjani ukuthi umhehe to a point where you literally lose everything, including your identity, to this person ongamazi?
So yes, for instance, especially thina abomama sithanda inwele ezinhle. We will go on Instagram, we will see a person selling hair. We click on that website. That website takes me to a prevalent website that's selling hair.
Okay.
When I get there, I enter my payment details, but I don't check the URL. The URL is supposed to be green. When you enter your details on a URL that is not safe, it doesn't have what we call an SSL certificate. So that says to you the payment gateway is not safe. It's actually not being encrypted. Because, like, in things like a payment from you to the bank, it's supposed to be encrypted and it's supposed to be safe.
Yes.
But for you to do so, you need to make sure that you're actually transacting on a very safe website.
Ngishilo lento sistorini ukuthi ilento yokuthi sithanda ukuthenga izinto online because anybody can then have access to that information as well as the history yakho. Ngiyabuya mbukeli with my guest uMani van Skalvik no sistorini Mokwena mbukeli. We are also taking those calls as well as emails as well as Facebook messages. We're back shortly after this. Ungayindawo. Well, it's our final segment. Isidingida udaba le cybercrime 011-714-6918, 714-6919. Money, maybe just as a wrap. I mean, we're literally on our last dying seconds. Yeah. Doreen mentioned something that I also started the show with. And this is the issue around the legislation when it actually comes to dealing with fraud and scams in the country. It's actually, if it's there, it's either very bleak or people don't understand it because we often hear that there's not enough state resources to tackle cyber crimes. So just going merely to the police station is not actually going to give you any reprieve, as we saw with our case study when we started. So this really needs to be looked at. Is there anything that your bodies like yourselves are doing to ensure that we increase the conversations around legislation, around fraud and so forth?
Yeah, I think cybercrime, what makes it very, very difficult is that it's not necessarily people sitting in Johannesburg targeting people that live in Johannesburg. It is people that operate, the fraudsters operate from India, from China, from America, from Europe. It's all over the world. So and it's not just if they realize a modus operandi is working, then they will target that consumer. And I think Doreen mentioned it. They will use your credit card globally, and every type of transaction. So, what my advice to consumers is that they need to protect themselves the whole time. They should not provide information easily to people that just want the information. I always use the analogy. Treat your information like you would treat cash.
Absolutely.
So you would be very careful how you deal with it. And I would recommend people use your smartphone, go to our website, safps.org.za. There's a button that says protect your information, apply for protective registration.
Yes.
We will and go through that process, because that will warn the credit provider every time that if you want to apply for credit, it will stop the credit process. So that you apply another piece of information, another identity, to make sure that the fraudsters don't abuse your name.
All right.
Opening accounts in your name.
All right, and maybe on that point, Sis Doreen, do you think likelihood yokuthi case yomuntu olethe cyber case e-court is prosecutable? Like uke wakuzwa lokho, kuyasebenzeka lokho, kukhona umuntu oke wavalelwa by conducting cyber crimes?
Yes, of course. We need to understand that cybercrime goes beyond fraud. It extends to interception of information. Somebody hacking into your WhatsApp, that is a prosecutable case. Because now we have what we call the Cybercrime Bill, which has criminalized information. We've got the Papaya Act, right now, which has been enacted into law.
All right,
and we have other legislations like GDPR as well. So
All right.
we do have acts and policies asizayo thina as ama-consumers against fraud and against cybercrime.
All right.
But everything falls to digital literacy and being informed.
All right. Okay, siyabonga sis. As you were saying, abantu, they need to be educated. Mbukeli, if umuntu ohlala ku-internet osebenzisa izinto ama-transactions owenza ama-transactions online, go out there uyifundise ukuthi uma usebenzisa izinto ezithize, you need firewalls, you need protective technologies ukuthi zifakwe ukuze abantu bangantshontshi i-information yakho. Let me thank my guest today, Mr. Mani van Skalwyk from the Fraud Prevention Services of South Africa, alongside Sis Doreen Mokoena, a digital forensic specialist, and siyabonga kakhulu ngama-tips abasinike wona. From myself, uMajali uNonhlanhla, ngizonibona next week. Ngithi nje nisale kahle.
Yilungelo